couples therapists, without breaking confidentiality, what are some relationships that instantly set off red flags, and do you try and get them to work out? When one person is entirely dependent on the other, especially at a relatively young age. I mean financially and emotionally. These are typically young women, sometimes young men as well, who do not work, do not have children, stay home all day and have no friends or hobbies outside of hanging out with their spouse. Very unhealthy, and a huge red flag. Always ends in a painful and messy breakup. Generally, we try to get them to find a friend, join a community, get a job or volunteer something to provide them with self-worth and personal fulfillment outside of their spouse. Child and AMP, family therapist here, not exactly couples therapy, but there are key family dynamics that set off red flags for interpersonal relationships within a family, whether it is between parents and kids, or simply kids. The most important piece comes from invalidation. This comes in many forms, from gaslighting to just simple denial of another's opinion. Most of the time one or both parties are simply trying to be heard on an emotional level with an event or topic that was brought up, but the other party takes this as a personal attack on their ideals. We've all heard of or know people who will literally disagree with anything you say simply because you said it. That's the invalidation I'm referring to. Cliché moral of the story: attack the problem, not each other. People rarely have the exact same stance in a conflict, but usually, in healthy relationships, have very similar core values. While two parents may disagree on how to parent a child, authoritarian vs authoritative for example, the core value of caring about their children and wanting them to succeed is often the same. By determining they are within the same realm of issue, two parents with different ideals can see themselves as allies in a conflict rather than enemies. Two things that people believe are red flags of poor relationships are the amount of conflicts the couple has and yelling. Neither is inherently a characteristic of good or bad relationships, but may be perceived as more common in bad relationships. The reality of this situation is that healthy relationships actually have a comparable amount of conflicts, but more intensely focus on addressing the core issue rather than the beliefs and self-worth of the other. As for yelling, in this case it's an emotional response to not feeling heard. While not the best response to distress, it also isn't an indicator of poor communication skills. What is an indicator of poor communication is yelling over the other person in an attempt to invalidate their point. Semi-related example: I had two people who were seemingly incredibly upset at each other. Parent A felt that Parent B was out of the house too frequently and did not want to be a part of their children's life. Parent B felt that Parent A didn't understand how busy their work schedule was. The fight revolved around Parent B seemingly not caring about the kids, until Parent B explained they felt Parent A was better at parenting and felt like they were only escalating the children when they started to parent. Parent A's understanding of the argument quickly changed from "you don't love our children" to "you are scared to let our children down." As you can guess, the tone of the conversation changed dramatically and there was no longer a sense that Parent A and B were on opposing sides. The issue instead became helping build confidence in Parent B's parenting abilities, which Parent A was much more validating and supportive of. Not all cases are this clean-cut by any means, but I figured I'd demonstrate the basic idea of finding core values and attacking an issue together. Invalidation. This comes in many forms, from gaslighting to just simple denial of another's opinion. I grew up being told "you don't feel that" when my parents didn't want to deal with how I felt. You can't fix a crying child by telling them everything is alright and there is no need to be upset. I am still pretty bad at knowing how I feel, and introspection makes me really uncomfortable. By comparison, factual gaslighting is easy to deal with. That never happened. I have actual physical scars from things that officially never happened. But the scars tell me that, well, something happened. Contempt. When I experience true contempt from one in the relationship, I know it is usually over. Look towards a peaceful ending at that point if possible. Contempt, one of Dr. John Gottman's 4 horsemen predictors of divorce, along with criticism, stonewalling and defensiveness. Yes. Yet I place contempt above them. One can usually work through the others just by reflecting the behavior patterns, yet contempt borders on hatred. Dug in hatred. Absolutely. You can figure out why you're being critical. You can figure out why you're not responding. You can figure out why you're being defensive. But if you have outright contempt for the person, there's not an easy way to move past that. Once you're in the I hate even looking at your stupid fucking face territory, the relationship is pretty much over whether you realize it or not. Relationship therapist here. One of the biggest red flags I see when working with a new couple is when they've totally forgotten the good. Part of relationship therapy is reconnecting a couple with what they like about each other, what initially attracted them to each other, and what the positives are between them. When people come in and they've been so unhappy for so long that they actually can't remember what it was like to be in love, or to even like each other, they are just about hopeless. You don't have to be happy for therapy to work, but if you can't even reminisce about the good times, then the good times are probably over. Edit, this is clearly resonating with some folks, so I'd like to recommend a book. If you find yourself in this situation, check out Hold Me Tight by Dr. Sue Johnson. She gives some solid explanations of how people get into this cycle, as well as some suggestions on how to try and navigate it. Couples in a tit-for-tat arrangement. For example, I cheated so you can have one night to cheat with whomever. Or I violated your trust and did drugs. You can go out and do whatever for one night. It erodes trust and compounds the hurt. An affair that won't end. I've never seen a relationship bounce back where a partner is still in contact with their GFBF. I don't mean an ex-GFBF. I mean the person X is having the affair with, or is lying about it. Control to an excessive amount. I most commonly see partners having to send pictures holding up a certain number of fingers or proving that it's a live picture. This is abuse. Overbearing parents and in-laws. I understand there's a ton of cultural nuance here, and I work with couples who have arranged marriages, as well as the South Asian community. However, when a spouse is more allied with their parents and calls them on speakerphone for fights, or often speaks ill of their partner to their parents, I usually see these couples stay very unhappily married for years. It's sad. If it's not abuse and a partner is willing to end an affair and genuinely work on it, I'll help support. I think couples therapy is sometimes helping couples have the courage to voice what they really want, and that may be separation. Edit, added another, and thanks for the awards folks. Edit 2. I can't ethically dive into some of your comments or give specific resources, but get in touch with your local crisis line or community service agency and they can direct you. Wishing all of you the best with your relationships and in-laws and parents. Edit 3. I answered some of the common questions in the comments. I intentionally have to be really vague and I can't comment on specific cases. It's unethical. I won't be able to respond to any more comments because this blew up far more than I ever expected, but thanks for reading. I hope this helps open the door to therapy for you or your loved ones in tough situations. If it's any help, I'm a therapist who goes to their own therapist. Also, some of these situations are nuanced, some are not. I'm not saying sharing your location with your partner is abusive, or that sending a picture to your spouse is. Therapists get a ton of data and history and information that helps us better understand what's going on. Sometimes, there's a dynamic between two people and they can set off a cycle. Read Sue Johnson's books for this, Love Sense and Hold Me Tight. Other times, I think it's unethical to assume a partner was hit because they deserved it or set their partner off. That's not okay. Please reach out to your local agencies and crisis line if you or a loved one needs help. Whataboutism. Instead of taking ownership and responsibility for their contribution to the degradation of the relationship, one or both parties simply point out an example of the other exhibiting a similar behavior. It's a red flag because it illustrates their lack of self-awareness and poor communication skills. Communication is key when trying to mend a tattered relationship because without respectful communication the conflict recovery process can never begin. In the conflict recovery model, both parties agree to the terms under which they will communicate. No yelling, no interrupting, no I told you so's, etc. Each party gets a chance to share how the other's actions make them feel. Then they each propose their solutions and identify where they made assumptions or where they got triggered and why. Then they identify where they are willing to compromise. Next, we create an actionable plan with deadlines and we monitor the progress to see if the proposed solutions were effective. Imo, everything can go to shit, but once communication stagnates, you're in real trouble. So even if you're arguing, you are still doing okay. You just need to work on how you're communicating. As a clinical psychologist, I focused mainly on behavioral medicine and cognitive assessment, but did my fair share of marriage couples work. Refusal or inability to compromise is a ginormous red flag, one that, I believe, is empirically validated. Compromise is a significant predictor of satisfaction in relationships, and it plays an important role in the long-term success of marriages and relationships in general. I'm a therapist, newer to couples counseling, but one of the flags I've seen is one person digging their heels in and not accepting any feedback or suggestions. Then that person tells me and partner that they are trying. I called him out on it, said that he needed to evaluate what he's willing to do and not do. Needless to say, didn't hear back from them. Another weird one is separating without a plan. All that's gonna do is teach you how to live without each other, Imo. I would ask them, okay, how do you know when the separation works? I don't know. When I start missing them, I guess, is what I typically hear. Boundary violations. Testing boundaries a little bit is okay, but repeatedly violating boundaries is a big red flag. I work a lot with people who have left abusive relationships, and often they doubt they ever will date again and eventually want to. We work on their personal boundaries, but I also suggest some easy boundaries to have and how they can help. Boundary 1. Maintain your routine. If you go to bed at 9 PM and wake up to work out at 5 AM, maintain that. A decent person will respect that. A non-decent person will try to bulldoze through it. It might look like, or stay up talking with me, I'm lonely, it's romantic to talk all night. If you aren't a teen, it isn't cute. It actually makes you too tired to be able to be present and critically reflective of the relationship. If they are teasing and making fun of your routine, you probably don't have the same values. It isn't about who is right or wrong, you probably aren't on the same page. Boundary 2. Cultural trend here is to move in together within a month, so might not apply elsewhere so much. For almost 6 months, don't get together more than 3-4 times a week. This boundary helps you to preserve your you-ness. It gives you time for your interests and friends. It very quickly flushes out insecurities or controlling behavior in a potential partner. Other good ones to pay attention to are cute things that violate a boundary. Hey, I have my kids this weekend, so no in-person time, and I will only spend time on my phone after the kids go to bed at 8, and guess what? The person cutely surprises you with a coffee. I'd give this one a one-time pass. Thanks for the coffee. Sorry I can't have you in. I'm not ready for you to meet the kids. etc. The person's response to being called out tells you so much. Folks, knowing your boundaries, knowing how to set them and knowing how to maintain them are so very important to your own personal well-being. Also learn how to respect other people's boundaries. Boundaries don't have to be permanent, they can change, but they can change because someone has earned it or lost it. Edit, to add the word months after 6 in boundary 2. Late to the party, but here goes. My most favorite exercise in couples counseling is to have them listen to 45 seconds 1 minute of instrumental music. Think Lorena McKennitt Greensleeves or something like that. Music that people don't really usually listen to. Then I ask person A to tell person B what they imagined while they were listening to the music. Then person B shares the same. Then we listen to the same music again, but I ask person A to try and see what person B, and vice versa, imagined, and pay attention to what they think feel when they do that. Interesting dynamics come up immediately. I'll share my own personal story here from when my own couples therapist did this with an ex and me. Oh, I imagined myself wearing a long, billowing green dress walking through a green valley. Think Scotland or Ireland. A remote castle was at the top of the hill and my scarf was flying in the wind. There was a gently, bubbly stream somewhere there too. I imagined myself on a cliff with the ocean waves crashing violently on the rocks. There was a storm with lightning and thunder. I was cold. Awesome therapist. Credit where credit is due. He was awesome. Okay, let's do that again. But try to see if you can visualize what the other person imagined. Okay? Music clip played again. Me. Inner thoughts. Okay, so the cliff. Yeah, I can see that. But see Monday now. A storm and violent waves? No way. Bubbly stream is so clear here. Okacoxo waves and, what did he say again? Cold? That's so stupid. It's a nice, warm day, maybe a bit windy, but if it evoked cold I would have never imagined myself in a dress. Wait, I'm supposed to be imagining his scenario. It just didn't fit. Why did he? When will this be over? Okay, so tell me how that went. Him. I tried, I really did, but I started visualizing her scene and it was so off. I mean, I'll give her the green and all, but me, what? Why do you always invalidate what I perceive? Never mind that I had just done the same in my head with him BTW. So anyone want to analyze the twisted dynamics that were at play during our whole relationship there? I laugh gently while I tell you guys this, but they were very clear from the outside and very confusing and combative from the inside. Also imho, and sometimes not so humble, all therapists should experience couples counseling. Not only did it change the way I practiced it myself, but it literally changed the way I built future relationships. And yes, this is a glowing endorsement for that part of therapy that I choose not to practice a lot. If one is ever on the fence about going to couples counseling, know that while it might not save this relationship, it will save you in subsequent ones. It will give you the tools to communicate with other partners in the future, or will give you insight in how you love and relate to others in ways individual counseling sometimes doesn't. Anyway, I adopted this exercise into my repertoire and am continually amazed at how revealing it is. Big red flag when we do this. Person J has trouble expressing what they visualized. Person K has zero trouble. Then person J reports they can 100% see what person K visualized, and person K is very critical of person J's experience or heavily indulgent. Oh yeah, I saw it. What did you think while visualizing it? I was doing the exercise correctly. Symbiotic relationships, codependency, narcissism and abuse are things I immediately screen for if this is the result. Finally, don't go to couples counseling if your partner is abusive. It doesn't work. It won't work. You will give the other person the tools and language to make you feel even worse, and there will be heavy retaliations at home if you reveal the truth. Not worth it. Go by yourself if you know or suspect abusive markers in your relationship. I don't focus on couples counseling, but I do have some couples therapy session from time to time. If you are in a relationship, some advice that will help you out. You will typically find yourselves in 3 metaphorical positions face to face. When you are here, you are feeding into each other, building each other up and communicating side by side. This is when you both are working together on a problem to find a solution. It's not forcing one to do all the work, but you both are taking responsibility back to back. This is a position you never want to be in because you take your focus off each other and you go your own directions. You either end up with one person pulling the other or a gap is formed. This position also says I don't care about your input. If I get a couple in position 3 and they refuse to move to position 2 or 1, that is a pretty big indicator the relationship will fail.